And I think, too, that there's an expectation that the fighter pilot shows up with a flying video, so I'm going to check that square for you this morning. But there's also a reason that I'm going to show this video. Now, how many of you have had the opportunity to see the United States Air Force Thunderbirds fly? Yeah. All right, I like to see it. It's okay. How many of you have seen the equally amazing, world-class U.S. Navy Blue Angels fly? There we go. Okay, all right. For those of you that just raised your hand, you saw the second greatest demonstration in the world. I'm kidding. Let's talk about the Navy Blue Angels for a second. I'd like you all to know that this year, 2023, was the first year that they hired their first woman demonstration pilot. Yeah. Lieutenant Commander Amanda Lee, if you get a chance to go see the Blue Angels, I hope that you will go cheer her and her teammates on. But that's actually me you see in the picture there. That's a different jet. That's an F-16 Fighting Falcon, nicknamed the Viper. That's the jet I flew when I was Thunderbird number 3 in the right wing position, flying in air shows around the world. And as we saw here, the vast majority of people have been to the local air show. Right? The air show comes to town. It's a family event. It's a patriotic event. There's technology. There's the smell of jet fuel. You know, your whole body rumbles with the noise. There's funnel cake and warm Budweiser. Like, people are happy to be at air shows, right? And one of the questions I get asked quite often to this day is, Nicole, what's the best part about being a Thunderbird pilot? Right? You must get treated like a celebrity. They think that the best part would be the flying, which is fun. They think it's going to be all the travel, not just around the United States, but around the world. Yes, that's cool. They think it's fun getting to meet celebrities, you know, like maybe Kayleen and Kurt Warner, right? That's cool. All right, but none of that gets to the heart of my answer. When people ask me, Nicole, what's the best part about being Thunderbird pilot? It happens after we land. So imagine we do loops to music for 30 minutes, we land, and when we do, we walk out to the autograph line and speak with the audience, where we sign autographs, take selfies, and answer questions. And I found it fascinating during my 2 years as a Thunderbird pilot. Every time I went to the autograph line, the same theme would come up to me. The same thing would be said to me, always from adults, never from children. The adults would look at me and they go, wow, Nicole, you're a fighter pilot, that's cool. And then they'd look at me and go, you're a Thunderbird pilot, that's pretty elite. And then they'd look at me like I was growing a horn or had a third eye, and they'd be like, you're a woman Thunderbird pilot. Like, I'm not sure what to do with that. And then with a straight face, every time people would look at me and go, you must somehow be different than the rest of us. You must somehow be naturally gifted. The path in front of you, Nicole, must have just been smooth. Now, I would kind of smile and demure that Thunderbird smile, thinking, I know they're trying to pay me a compliment. But inside I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding me, right? I mean, the path for me to get to the cockpit of that red, white, and blue F-16 was littered with twists, turns, bumps, bruises, mistakes, failures, headwinds, all along the way. And so when I watched this video with you this morning, I'm reminded of a lesson I learned a long time ago, which is this. The path to success for any individual or for any team is always going to be nonlinear. The path to success is always going to be nonlinear. So this video was taken my first year on the team way back in 2006. It's about a minute and a half long. 50% of the in-cockpit video comes from within my jet, so it's your chance to fly as Thunderbird number 3. I hope you enjoy it. I do miss the flying, and it was a lot of fun. And it's also fun to stand on the stage and watch all of your faces when those 4 jets cross there. You know, we get asked a lot about that 4-jet maneuver, which is called the bomber's cross. And people often say to us, you know, you must have some sort of a radar or an autopilot or a computer that helps you do that. And frankly, there's none of that. That's all individual pilot judgment and decision making, individual, you know, throttle and stick. And for context, we actually have about 1,000 miles per hour of closure and pass at about 32 feet apart, which is half the width of this stage. So it's the real deal, okay? So let's talk about this first headwind of self-doubt. And I don't care how old and experienced and confident we think we are, right? We all have these moments of self-doubt across our lives. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream or a goal that was so big, so gnarly, so complex, the idea of actively pursuing it, like you're like, no way. The idea of maybe speaking that dream out loud to other people gives you a knot in your stomach. There's that voice in your head that says that dream is too big for you. You know, maybe you have a really innovative idea that would revolutionize real estate, right? And how you interact with communities. But you're thinking, I don't want to be the gal that rocks the boat. You know, I don't want to be the guy that goes against the status quo, and so you keep that innovative idea inside. I think that we've all been there. I had a big, gnarly dream as a kid to one day grow up and become a United States Air Force Thunderbird pilot. A little bit of context about me. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada. Yes, thank you. People are from Las Vegas, Nevada, right? I always tell them, we got the Raiders fans up here. I always tell people Vegas has like schools and grocery stores and libraries, just like other people. But one of the coolest parts about being a kid in Las Vegas is that there's an Air Force base there called Nellis Air Force Base. Its nickname is Home of the Fighter Pilot. So I grew up as a little kid watching fighter jets fly overhead thinking I want to do that someday. It's also home to the United States Air Force Thunderbirds, that team you just watched. So I remember as a kid taking my brown bag lunch out onto the football field at Western High School, eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Eating my Fritos, and screaming overhead would come this 6-jet formation of red, white, and blue F-16, smoke trailing behind, and I would shake with excitement thinking there's people up there. I want to be one of those people. But I knew that it was hard, even back then as a kid. It's hard enough to become a fighter pilot, it's even harder to become a Thunderbird. Just for more context for that, in your active duty American Air Force today, there's about 12,000 pilots. Of those 2,000 are fighter pilots, and of those 6, only 6 have the chance on any given year to be a Thunderbird pilot. So it's statistically improbable that anybody becomes a Thunderbird, but obviously it's not impossible. But the idea of actively pursuing a dream or a goal that big? No way. Every time I would think about talking to people about it or actively pursuing it, the voice in my head would always say, other people become Thunderbird pilots, Nicole, not you. And so I kept that dream inside. And I went about becoming a fighter pilot, flying that beautiful F-15E Strike Eagle that I showed you earlier. And every year, the Air Force sends out an email at the exact same time that says the exact same thing. Dinging into the inbox, says we're looking for 3 new Thunderbird pilots. It's a 2-year assignment, so 3 pilots are new on their first year, 3 pilots are experienced on their second year. Ding into the inbox, we're looking for 3 new Thunderbird pilots, here's the qualifications, here's the application. And even though I was fully qualified and it had been my dream since I was a kid, every year when that email would come into my inbox, I would do the exact same thing. Ding into the inbox, I would open it, I would read it, and then I would quickly go, delete. Delete, delete, delete. Other people become Thunderbird pilots, Nicole, not you. And year after year after year, I deleted that until 2005, I found myself preparing to deploy for Operation Iraqi Freedom, with every single certification and qualification you could have as a frontline fighter pilot. And ding into my inbox came that same message at the same time. And for whatever reason that year, 2005, as I read it, a light bulb kind of came on in my heart and in my mind. As I read that email, I thought to myself, why not me? Why not me? And I remember going to bed that night and tossing and turning and thinking about it and getting this knot in my stomach and that feeling of nausea. But with all the courage I could muster the next day, I walked into work and I spoke that dream out loud. I told my peers, my supervisors, my colleagues, my chain of command in the military, I'm applying to be a Thunderbird. And generally speaking, people were tickled. Yeah, generally speaking, initially, people were really happy. And then, however, as the days went by, if I had $1 for every time I heard these things, you know, Nicole, it's hard to be a Thunderbird. You know, Nicole, you probably won't get picked. You know, Nicole, they've never had a woman Thunderbird pilot before. Are you sure you want to do that? Over and over and over, I heard the same things, but I said, no, Nicole, stay focused, right? So I put together this application, a big, gnarly, complex application, as you might imagine, for a job like this. A picture of me in uniform, a letter of why I wanted to be a Thunderbird pilot, all of my annual HR performance reports, all of my annual flying tests, or what we call flying check ride scores. But the thing that was weighted the most, the thing that counted the most in this application was a letter of recommendation from the first full bird colonel in my chain of command. Now, I am a young 30-year-old captain in this picture. At that time, a full bird colonel, that was a big deal. That was intimidating. I am now a retired full bird colonel. I'm here to tell you we're not a big deal. We're a dime a dozen, okay? But at the time, it was intimidating. So I said to myself, Nicole, just draft the letter for him. All you have to do is walk that letter in and give his signature to John Hancock, you'll be fine. So I put this big, complex application together, and I remember this day like it was yesterday. I took that application in with all the courage I could muster, and the feeling of nausea in my stomach. I walked over to his staff, and I slid that application right across the desk and said, I'm applying to be a Thunderbird. And here's what happened. The guy looked at me and said, you know, Nicole, it's hard to be a Thunderbird. You know, Nicole, you probably won't get picked. You know, Nicole, they've never had a woman Thunderbird pilot before. And the colonel only has one #1 recommendation he's allowed to give. So we're not sure we want to waste it. Yeah, boom, right? Okay. You know how you all felt listening to that story. You can imagine how I felt hearing it. Let's pause for a second. I know this person. They were not trying to be mean. Let's assess it for what it was. What was coming out was the unconscious bias that every single one of us needs to check ourselves on every single day. What was coming out was the cultural paradigms of the Air Force. That's cool. Yeah, give it a hands up. I agree with you. You know, what was coming out were the cultural paradigms of the Air Force at that time. And what was coming out was other people's expectations about what I should or should not be doing. And in that moment, here's what happened. I looked right at him, I grabbed that application, and I removed it. I looked him in the face and I said, you're right. I am so sorry for having bothered you. And I walked out feeling embarrassed and ashamed. Other people become Thunderbird pilots, Nicole, not you. And I did what any self-respecting fighter pilot would do at that moment. I went across the street to the officers club and I grabbed a beer. Preferably a craft beer. So I'm over there, you know, drinking my beer, licking my wounds, thinking, who are you, Nicole, to think you can become a Thunderbird pilot? Silly you. Thank goodness you didn't embarrass yourself. And I'm over there talking to the guys about the data flying, talking with our hands like fighter pilots do. And in that moment, this door opens over here and in walks the wing commander. Now, the wing commander is a brigadier general. This guy is 6 foot 5 inches tall, the man's man, the poster child of the macho male fighter pilot. And for whatever reason, he starts to make a beeline for me and starts making small talk. To this day, I don't know why he came to talk to me. I don't recall at all what we were talking about. I don't know if he was like walk amongst the people today, check, like, I don't know, right? But I'm over there thinking, all right, you know, I gotta be cool, right? I gotta hold my own. I'm a fighter pilot. I'm drinking my beer, looking way up at him. We're chatting. And in that moment, over walks my supervisor, a guy by the name of Dan Debris, call sign Trash. Did you get it? Trash Debris? Okay. Now you all, we can have a call sign class later. I can tell you all about that. So Trash comes over and he says, General, did you know Nicole's applying to be a Thunderbird? Like Ixnay on the Underbird pay. This is terrifying. I mean, neither of these guys knew I had decided to remove my application. Neither of them knew what had just transpired across the street. And in that moment, the general looks way down at me and he goes, that's great, Nicole. How's your application going? True story, here's what happened. I took a swig of my beer, I looked way up at him and I said, you know, sir, it's hard to be a Thunderbird. You know, sir, I probably won't get picked. You know, sir, they've never had a woman before, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. It's almost embarrassing, really. I'm 50 years old now to share this story. But everything everyone else had said had taken up room in my own mind, right? Had expanded and now was coming out of my own mouth. I almost never became a Thunderbird pilot at all. And in that moment, General Mark Matthews gave me one of the single greatest gifts of my personal and professional life. It's a set of words, a mantra, a phrase that I want you to remember too. The next time you get that knot in your stomach that says that dream is too big for you, or that idea is just too innovative or complex, I want you to remember this. General Mark Matthews looked down at me and he said, Nicole, nobody wants to lead a scripted life. Nobody wants to lead a scripted life. And in that moment, he walked away and left me in the most awkward silence. And with those words, I think he lifted the weight of the world off my shoulders. He told me it was okay to dream big. He told me it was okay to go against the status quo and break barriers. He was telling me it was okay to risk failure in pursuit of personal and professional growth. And it's not so much, I think he's telling you and me to write ourselves into the script. Listen to what he was saying. Don't ever write yourself out of the script. And as leaders and teammates, don't ever write anybody else or their wild ideas out of the script either. Nobody wants to lead a script-based life. And what a sharp reminder, right? The power of our words to make or break somebody else's dream or idea. And what a reminder about the importance of talent management. Where are you looking for talent and ideas? Because I guarantee you, nobody saw somebody like me coming. All right? And people ask me a lot, did you ever get the #1 recommendation from the colonel? No, I did not. But I did get a sparkling recommendation from a general, so that worked out. So let's talk about this kind of headwind of change, cultural and organizational change that happens around us, right? So here I am, one of only 6 pilots in the United States Air Force, selected to be a Thunderbird pilot. I show up at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada, hometown girl, done good. Mayor gave me a key to the city, right? I was somebody. I had arrived. And I remember walking into that squadron the very first day. I said, hello, I'm Nicole Malachowski, your new pilot. I'm ready to go fly. I was met with nothing but stares. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm one of the pilots. People go to air shows to watch us fly. Right? I'm ready to go fly. I will never forget this moment. The senior enlisted guy looks at me straight in the eye and says, quote, you don't get to touch our jet until I say you can, end quote. Boom, right? I'm taken aback. He says, you don't get to touch our jet until you get to know each and every one of us, our names, our spouses' names, our kids' names, our hometowns, our hobbies. Further, Miss Pilot, you need to go do a little mini internship with every single other career function on this team so you have a better understanding of where you fit in as a singular piece in this highly interdependent puzzle of a team. So you have a better understanding how if you don't do your job to a level of excellence, it impacts all of us, and how if we don't do our job to a level of excellence, it impacts you. You see, at that time, there were 125 people from 25 different career functions that came together to make that mission happen, and all it took was one of us, just one, not doing our job to the highest standards of performance, and that entire elite mission would fall apart. Thunderbirds taught me a valuable lesson right there from day one, and it was this. Nothing of significance is ever accomplished alone. Nothing of significance is ever accomplished alone. And I'm just an outsider, but I will say my sister is a real estate agent. And I will say what realtors do is significant to communities. It's significant to economies. We just watched several stories, these Good Neighbor Awards, of how significant you are to communities. Nothing of significance is ever accomplished alone. And I remember turning wrenches under the jets with the crew chiefs, working with the supply guys to learn about logistics. I learned about the budget from the finance personnel. I learned about strategic communication from public affairs, and I did that for 3 weeks of non-flying. And after 3 weeks of doing that, then and only then would they finally let me touch that beautiful red, white, blue F-16. And I remember the first day I went out to fly as a Thunderbird. Blue sky and tailwind kind of day, hometown girl, done good. I am waltzing out to the jet, wind in my hair, sounds of Top Gun in my head. I am walking out, and I get out to that jet, and immediately and instinctually I start to do the walk around. Now, the walk around is the first thing that any pilot does before they go fly. They're checking to make sure the aircraft is safe and airworthy. You have all seen your airline pilots do it. You look out the window, she is walking around making sure that the wings didn't fall off overnight or there's some sort of massive fuel leak or oil leak. I started flying when I was 12. I sold at 16 at North Las Vegas Airport, right? I'd been a fighter pilot for 8 years. The first thing a pilot does is the walk around, and instinctually I walked out to the jet. I start to do the walk around, and I'm met by these two smiling faces. Nate on the left, Dave on the right. Nate quickly jumps between me and the jet. He puts up his hands, really scared, and he goes, "Ma'am, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing my walk around, like I always do." And he says, "No, ma'am, I'm so sorry. You don't do that here. I do the walk around. I've already done the walk around. I'm trained to do that. The aircraft is safe and airworthy. Get in." Now, I'm looking at this guy thinking, I just met you. How am I supposed to trust you? And is it you putting your body in this plane? And then Dave on the right, he kind of ups the ante. He says, "Ma'am, not only do we pre-flight your aircraft for you, but we pre-flight all of your life support equipment as well." Life support equipment, right, is in my life. He says, "We pre-flight your G-suit, your harness, your helmet, your ejection seat, ma'am." I've already done that. Life support equipment is good to go. The aircraft is safe and airworthy, ma'am. Get in. Now, if I'm being honest, and it's embarrassed to admit it, as I stare at these two great Americans, highly trained professionals, Nate and Dave, I got a knot in my stomach, and all I felt at that moment was a little feeling of resentment towards my own teammates. Who are you? How am I supposed to trust you with my life? Why do things have to be different? I've always done it this way. You ever felt like that when change comes along? I think we all have. We have a 3-month-long training program. It's crawl to walk to run. We fly twice a day, 3 times a day, sometimes even on Saturdays. And every time I came out and they were doing this pre-flight and I would see them, I would get that knot in my stomach. And then about 2 months into this 3-month-long training program, I had a bit of an aha teammate moment. I walked out into that hot Las Vegas sun, and Nate was down on his hands and knees, dripping sweat, polishing the wheel well of this F-16 to the finest detail. And it hit me as I looked at him. He takes as much pride in doing his job as I do. He takes as much pride in doing his job as I do. The next time you're working with another teammate, maybe it's business, maybe it's even just like a client is a little rough, right? Maybe you start feeling that tension. You start thinking, I could do it faster if I just did it myself. How am I supposed to trust you, right? I want you to remember this. I want you to look at them, take a deep breath. Afford that teammate a moment of grace. Put your ego aside and let go a little bit. And let your teammates take as much pride in doing their job as you do. And Dave, he had a really important job, okay? When I would go out to the jet, I would climb up the ladder, get in the cockpit, and right before I would start the jet, his job was to strap me into my ejection seat. And under Thunderbird procedures, that was a physical connection I was not allowed to check at that moment. So here he is, strapping me into my ejection seat. Dave Batterson, the only thing that would stand for me between life and death should something catastrophic happen. Dave Batterson. And he would climb up and he would strap me in, and I'd be watching real good, right, to make sure he's doing all right. And every day he would do that. And then about 2 months into this 3-month-long training program, I had another aha moment. Dave, he climbs up the ladder, he straps me in, right? And he had started this really cool, tradition with me. He would stick out his hand and we would clasp hands, like bros, right? And he would look down at me and very enthusiastically, he would yell, "Rock and roll, 3. Rock and roll. That meant have a good flight, 3. That was me, my name, my number on the team. And day after day we did this. And then I said 2 months into this training program, I had that aha moment. He climbs up the ladder, he straps me in, rock and roll, 3. And for the first time ever in my 8 years as a professional fighter pilot, I looked back at him and spontaneously said, "Thanks for letting me borrow your jet." Thanks for letting me borrow your jet. How is it I had gone my entire career as a fighter pilot and I had never stopped to acknowledge and show gratitude to the very people who enabled and empowered and resourced me to do what I do? When was the last time you stopped in your professional life, in your personal life, to acknowledge and show gratitude to all those who enable and empower and resource you to do what you do? A lot of times we think this acknowledgement and gratitude has to come in the form of the annual awards banquet or these gigantic, amazing Good Neighbor Awards, which are so important and absolutely have to happen. But what I'm talking about here is slightly different. What I'm talking about is that day-to-day appreciation and acknowledgement that says, I see you, I appreciate you. And it may be as simple as just those words. Maybe it's an extra Starbucks when you come into the office. Maybe it's a phone call, an email, right? A pat on the back. My personal favorite, a handwritten note. Because I am here to tell you, in those moments of daily I see you appreciation moments across your team, that's where trust is built. And with trust comes loyalty. And with loyalty comes an increased ability to handle headwinds and change when they come along. You know, just about, gosh, it was last Christmas, so what, 10, 11 months ago. True story, and I just thought of this. I'm totally riffing right now. So 11 months ago, Dave Batterson and I surprised our spouses and kids with a trip to Disney World for Christmas. And I remember we were out there, we went to the campsite, Wilderness Lodge, right? We're out there with our families, putting some s'mores over the fire pit, roasting our marshmallows. And Dave looks at me and he goes, you know, Three, because he still calls me Three. He says, you know, Three, you remember that time that you thanked me for letting me, you borrow my jet? I said, yeah. He goes, I remember that too. Because that was the first time in my career as an aircraft crew chief mechanic that any pilot had stopped to say thank you for what I did. Our friendship of 18 years now? 18 years from the story I just told, was built in that moment. That human connection. He's my community. Think about those day-to-day interactions that make your communities better and stronger. Take the time to acknowledge and show gratitude. All right? Now, this is my favorite formation. It's called the Delta Formation. It's the only time in the air show that all 6 jets get together and fly together. I think it's very powerful. It's very graceful looking. I mean, check it out. 6 jets flying at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from each other. It's pretty extraordinary stuff. I'm in this picture. Look at the leader. The leader's at the top of the screen, number 1. Setting the direction, setting the vision, setting where we're going. Each and every one of us fulfilling a very unique position and role. I'm immediately down and to his right. Each and every one of us flying in alignment perfectly. Plus or minus 1 degree of heading, plus or minus 1 to 2 knots of airspeed have made that beautiful formation happen. It is a gorgeous thing. And this formation actually happens at the end of the air show, so it's often on the mind of the audience when we land and we go over to the autograph line, right? So we would get asked a heck of a lot of questions about this formation in particular. And the number 1 question I would get asked is this: Nicole, what does it take to build that level of trust? What a fantastic question, right? What does it take to build that level of trust? And often people think I'm going to say, well, we have a training syllabus that's crawl to walk to run, just like we have nice training programs when you onboard people or bring them into real estate. They think I'm going to say, well, there's process and procedure, minimum altitude, maximum airspeeds, which is true, just like there is in real estate. They think I'm going to say, well, there's certain certifications and qualifications you need as a fighter pilot to do this, just like real estate agents and brokers need to have. And all of those things are true. But none of them get to the heart of the answer. When people ask me, Nicole, what does it take to build that level of trust? The answer is this: you build trust by being trustworthy. You build trust by being trustworthy. So often on teams, we think that trust comes to us from other people. Have you ever felt like this? I'll admit that I have. Okay, I'll be vulnerable here. That guy over there, he needs to prove to me that I can trust him. I'm not sure I can trust that gal. I could do it faster if I just do it myself. I think we've all been here. I'm here to argue that elite performers like you and the elite teams that you're wanting to lead look at trust completely differently. Trust never comes to you from other people. Trust emanates outward from you to a team. Trust emanates from your actions, your decisions, and your behaviors. Each and every single one of you is called to a very unique role on the teams that you're on. Maybe you're a team of 1 in your real estate office. Maybe you're on a team of 1,000. I don't know, right? We got a lot of organizations represented in here. but each person called to a very specific role because of your unique strengths, your unique qualifications, your unique skills, and each and every one of you given a certain level of accountability and responsibility to and for other people. I was Thunderbird number 3. I was to be the best number 3 I could be. If I was sick, that spot went empty. If my jet was broke, that spot went empty. It's not as simple as swapping a left wing to a right wing. Those are 2 completely different aerodynamic maneuvers. I was Thunderbird 3. I was to be the SME my veterans in here know, SME, the subject matter expert. Each and every one of you expected to be the subject matter expert. You want to be so good, so dependable, so reliable in all circumstances that if anyone on your team, anyone across this larger real estate community, any of your customers or clients have a question about what it is that you do, you want them to instinctually pick up that phone and call you. You build trust by being trustworthy. Now there's something else that I think about when I look at this picture. It's a phrase that every single American Air Force fighter pilot knows, all right? It's the last thing a team lead, a flight lead, says to their wingman before they go fly. And I don't care if we're talking about in combat, in peacetime training, or at an air show. So imagine, right? We have planned up this really complex, combat mission. We've gotten together as a team, we've briefed it. We've gone to life support. We've got our G-suits, our harness, our helmet. We're striding out to our jets, wind in our hair, Top Gun in our head, right? And just as we start to split to our individual aircraft, the last thing I would say to my wingman as their flight lead was this. When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract. When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract. What does that mean? The wingman contract, those 2 words, wingman contract, that phrase means everything to an Air Force fighter pilot. It is our unspoken bond and unspoken promise to each other. It is the gentleman's handshake and the gentlewoman's agreement that says this is who we are. We have expectations of each other's standards of professional behavior. We have expectations of each other's professional execution of this mission. And under this wingman contract, I promise you, I will hold myself accountable to that standard. And out of caring and compassion and a shared commitment to what we're trying to do as a team, I promise to hold you accountable to that standard. The wingman contract, my friends, is the culture. It's the vibe. It's that unspoken undercurrent, that compass that drives us forward in everything that we do. In a lot of organizations and teams, it comes in the form of a mission statement, a vision statement, maybe a set of principles or values that guide you. As I sit here and I talk to you now with many different organizations across real estate represented in here, ask yourself, where I work, is there a wingman contract? Has it been communicated? Is there buy-in? Is there a way that we can hold each other and ourselves accountable in a productive and in a positive way? You see, it's vital, I think, to have a wingman contract. Here's the thing. A wingman contract in an organization will always apply to everybody in the organization, from the newest, youngest intern hire, all the way up through mid-level managers to the CEO and the general officers and everybody in between equally. Why does it matter? Because a wingman contract will enable and empower everyone at all levels of an organization to make independent, agile decisions at the exact time and place that your customers and clients need it, that will always be in alignment with where this industry is going. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say or do in alignment with our wingman contract? And if it is, move out. And move out with confidence, knowing you're going in the right direction. Because I don't know about you, but I don't have time to stop and call a meeting every time a decision needs to be made. I have yet to find anyone who wants to have another PowerPoint presentation or Excel spreadsheet, right? Because it's not okay for you and me to be flying at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from each other, and for me to look at you again and go, what is it again we're doing here, right? When in doubt, always honor your wingman contract. And I'm just an old washed-up fighter pilot and a harried mother of 13-year-old twins and an outsider to the real estate community. But even I can figure out what the NAR wingman contract is. I actually read it. It's several pages. It's the code of ethics. It's on your website. Okay? You come together at events like this to recommit to each other, to recommit to your profession, and to recommit to your wingman contract in that code of ethics. When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract. One of the hardest things I had to learn how to do as a Thunderbird pilot was learn to fly like Thunderbird pilots. For those of you who have been to the air shows, Thunderbirds are the awesome Blue Angels. You'll always hear the same thing from the narrator. As the pilots get ready to fly, the narrator comes on the microphone and says, "Watch now as these Thunderbird pilots do the same maneuvers as your frontline fighter pilots out around the world." I don't know why they say that, because it is a lie. We do not fly like this in the regular Air Force. There's a reason we have a long training program. And it's a training syllabus, right? It starts out nice and easy, and like most training programs, it gets harder as it moves along. And as we started out in the training program, a lot of the maneuvers were flown from the formation you see on the right. That's called the diamond formation. And any time I flew the diamond formation, I was so happy and so comfortable because I was kind of good at it, right? And any time that we would try to learn a new maneuver from diamond, I'd try it 10, 11, 12 times, boom, the light bulb would go off, I'd figure the maneuver out, and we as a team would move along with the training syllabus, which got harder and harder until about 2 months into it, I met my nemesis, the formation on the right. I don't even like looking at the picture. To this day, I will let you look at it for me. Look, trail formation, right? I never got comfortable in trail. Look closely at that photo. All right, there are 4 aircraft stacked vertically on top of each other. I am third down from the top. You see me there? I got 2 aircraft above me. The closest is 3 feet from the top of my canopy. Don't forget, you got that 4th aircraft underneath you 3 feet away, who you cannot see, who's 100% dependent on you for his safety. Now, one of the reasons I really didn't enjoy trail formation is as we are stacked vertically on top of each other, all it takes is one pilot, just one, letting off by 0.1 the force of gravity, and that entire formation can collapse on itself. It is my opinion that that is the formation right there where both the Thunderbirds and the Navy Blue Angels accept the highest level of risk. And there was a certain maneuver from trail that we were trying to learn called the trail to diamond roll that I could not figure out. I don't care how many times we practiced the trail to diamond roll, I could not figure it out. Now the trail to diamond roll, you've all seen Top Gun 2 Maverick, so everyone's a fighter pilot, right? Everybody's a fighter pilot these days. Check it out, it's just like it sounds. We're gonna be in trail, we're all gonna roll to the left, we're gonna end up in diamond formation. What you need to know is it's the single hardest maneuver for the number 3 position to fly. Out of sheer aerodynamics, I have to power up more, roll more, and pull more than anybody else in order to make it happen. It is so difficult and so risky that actually as of last year, the Thunderbirds no longer fly this maneuver. So we'll throw back today, okay? Now, here I am at the height of my career, the height of my experience, the height of my qualifications and certifications, right? One of only 6 pilots in the Air Force, and I can't figure it out. To top it off, everybody else on the team figured it out. This was super frustrating for me, super hard on my ego. All right, I'm going to show you a clip of me in training season messing this up, all right? So take a look at the screen. 4 jets vertically on top of each other. I am third down from the top. We are at 8-foot spacing, not 3-foot spacing. Why? Because I can't figure it out, right? Now, what's going to happen in this trail to diamond roll is as we start to roll to the left, all right, you're going to see me basically fly away from the formation and do my own air show. Right? Now, it's not going to look that drastic to you from the ground, but I'm here to tell you it was 8 to 10 times out of position, 25 to 30 feet away, as opposed to the 3 feet standard of excellence we were looking for. Very frustrating. So here's me failing and flailing. I hope you enjoy it. I know what you're thinking. It looked good to me, right? Yeah. I know. No, it's hard for me to watch that video even 18 years later. terrible. It's a D plus effort, a C minus effort. It was well outside of the standard. It was not up to the wingman contract. My ego was hurting. It was frustrating. And don't think I couldn't see the headline, friends. First woman Thunderbird pilot fails out of training, right? A very stressful moment for me. And I remember when we went into debrief that day, the team looked at me exasperated, because all of them had it figured out. The team looked at me exasperated, and they were like, gosh, Nicole, we cannot spend any more time on this maneuver. We've wasted days in the syllabus. We have a graduation date we need to meet. We have air shows we have to get to. We have to move on with the training. So we will just fly this at 8 feet instead of 3 feet. Right? What a horrible feeling. 3 feet was the standard of excellence, not 8 feet. And remember, the standard you're willing to walk past is the standard you're willing to accept. And I knew in that moment mentally, I was not going to get past this. I was not going to get past this. And I didn't know what to do in that moment. I felt a little nauseous, I felt embarrassed, I felt ashamed. And I wanted to let my team know, but I didn't know what to do. Fighter pilot ego, right? The mask of confidence that we all carry every single day. And I remember this day like it was yesterday as well. I looked at those 5 other pilots, extraordinary people, great brothers. And I took a deep breath and I said the 3 hardest words I ever said in my professional career. I need help. I need help. Why is it that those words are so difficult to get out of our mouths? What is it about those 3 words that just cause us to freeze? But my friends, they were like, ooh, Nicole said the H word. Like, right? It was a nice big red flag for them. And the beauty of it is what happened. What happened was my team stopped, and for the next 2 days, we did that maneuver over and over and over again, hundreds of times, until I got it right. Because it was the right thing to do by me as a teammate, it was the right thing to do by our wingman contract, and importantly, it was the right thing to do by our customer and client, the audience on the ground who had an expectation of 3 feet of excellence. And I'm happy to say I finally did figure it out 2 days later. I'm going to show you a clip of that. If you look on the screen, the reflection of my helmet is in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Look closely, you do have 2 aircraft above you. Do you see both of them? The closest now is indeed 3 feet from the top of your canopy. Don't you forget, you got a 4th aircraft underneath you, 3 feet away who you cannot see, who's 100% dependent on you for his safety. Now, one of the reasons I never got comfortable with the trail of the diamond roll is this. You're going to watch in the video. Just check out my hands for a second here. We're going to be stacked vertically on top of each other. We're all going to roll to the left. At that instant, the aircraft above you is going to slide down and to the left, and right there, all right, you're going to see our wingtips cross at about 12 inches apart. Yeah. So here's me getting it right. I hope you enjoy it. What felt better, let's be honest, was that my teammates helped me. Not from a place of judgment or shame, but from a place of caring and compassion and shared commitment. Ask for and offer help. The lesson here is very simple, friends. You are never too good, too experienced, too qualified, too proud to ask for help when you need it. That's the beauty of NAR. Isn't that the beauty of this network? Right? And it's never beneath any of us to offer help. Never from a place of judgment or shame, but always from a place of caring and compassion and shared commitment. Ask for and offer help. Now we've talked about the headwinds, right? The self-doubt, the headwinds of handling change around you. The third and last headwind and the last story that I'm going to tell you today is about dealing with the unexpected. One of the hardest things I had to learn how to do as a Thunderbird pilot was learn to stay in formation when we encountered turbulence. Now I know what you're thinking. Nicole, you said you started flying at 12. You've been a fighter pilot 8 years. Clearly you had flown in turbulence many times. What's the big deal? Well, my friends, the first time you encountered turbulence at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from 5 other jets, that is indeed an eye-opening moment, okay? Now, are there any other pilots in here? Raise your hand. I know we got them in here with this many people. All right, there she is. She is nice. All right, we got a couple pilots in here. All right, another one. Thank you. Yes, down here. You're an Eagle driver. C models? A's and C's. Wow, you flew A's. Nice. We'll have to talk about that later. You are slightly older than me, yes, if you flew A models. It just means you're more experienced and more wise, and I have things to learn from you. But we've got some pilots in here, right? So you guys can hold me accountable, and I know fighter pilots will definitely hold me accountable. Turbulence is fascinating to us pilots. Fascinating. We have weather models that can tell us when the atmosphere is right for turbulence before we fly. But we can never predict exactly where that turbulence is going to occur, how severe that turbulence is going to be, or how long that turbulence is going to last. Does that sound familiar? Right? I mean, the pandemic was a giant pocket of turbulence for all of us personally and professionally. But I was thinking, I'm a Thunderbird pilot, I'm experienced, turbulence ain't a big deal. And I remember we were in training season, it was a blue sky and tailwind kind of day. I'm flying in my favorite diamond formation. I'm actually at the top of the screen here. I'm about 6 inches wide in this photo. It still frustrates me to this day, but I like the blue sky background, so I use it. All right? But I remember we were going out to fly, and the weather guy runs up to us just as we're getting ready to step to the jets, and he says, the atmosphere is right for turbulence. And I think, no big deal, thanks buddy, it'll be fine. So we're out there cruising along, blue sky and tailwind kind of day, things are nice and smooth, and boom, we hit that turbulence the first time. And the second we hit that turbulence, I'm like, there are jets right there. And I'm fighting to stay in position, but I don't want to hit anybody, right? So all of a sudden we hit that turbulence, my whole body tenses up, I get a knot in my stomach, I start to sweat, and I start to fight to stay in position. With each bump of that turbulence, right, I gripped that stick really hard. The turbulence would bump, I'd put in an input to counter it. Then the turbulence would bump again, and I'd put in another input to fight and stay in position. And then it would bump again, and I would put in another input, and those inputs tend to get bigger and bigger and bigger until you get into something called a PIO, or a pilot-induced oscillation. It makes for a very ugly air show. All right? It's impossible for your teammates to fly next to you, right? And it's extremely inefficient. I was making things worse. Isn't that our instincts as human beings when change and turbulence comes along? Do you ever try to over-control? Do you ever try to control the uncontrollable? What an inefficient use of our limited time and talent and treasure. But there I was, fighting to stay in position. We finally land. We get on the ground. I wipe the sweat from my brow and think, thank God I didn't hit anybody. And we go into debrief that day. And the senior pilot on the team, he's on his second year. Thunderbird number 4, Steve Horton. You can see him in this picture. He's on the far right. All right? He's the guy that flies underneath me. Steve Horton, the man that sees all of my mistakes. Right? He says, Nicole, what were you doing out there? You were a mess. You were all over the place. I couldn't fly next to you. You weren't up to the wingman contract. What was going on? I said, Steve, couldn't you feel the turbulence? I was fighting to stay in position, Steve. And I will never forget this day. Steve Horton, a dear friend to this very day, he looked right at me with the biggest smirk on his face, and he goes, oh, we forgot to tell you the secret. And I looked at him like, what? And he said, we forgot to tell you the secret for how to stay in formation when we encounter turbulence. Would you like to know the secret? Yeah, bro, information I could have used yesterday, right? He says, the secret is this, Nicole. We promise each other as a team. No matter what position you're flying, no matter what formation you're in, no matter what maneuver we are about to do, we promise each other as a team that when any one of us encounters turbulence in our own jet, we will immediately loosen our grip. The answer, Nicole, is to loosen your grip. Mind blown, right? The opposite of my instincts as a pilot at that moment, fight and stay in position, and the opposite of our instincts as human beings when change and turbulence comes along. But I went home and I thought about it. I tossed and I turned all night. How am I supposed to loosen my grip? What does he mean? Steve Horton, though, he's experienced. He's the wise guy, right? So I went home and I tossed and I turned. I got up the next day and I thought, okay, we go out, it's a blue sky and tailwind kind of day. The weather guy says the atmosphere is right for turbulence, I'm ready. We are cruising along, things are nice and smooth, and boom, we finally hit that turbulence. And I start to tense and grip the stick, but I think, no, Steve Horton, he's like the Yoda of the team, loosen your grip. And I let go with 1, 2, 3 fingers and I fly the jet just like this. And guess what happened? Yeah, I stayed in position. We all stayed in position. The formation stayed in alignment, and eventually we exited the turbulence because turbulence doesn't last forever. It's okay to loosen your grip. And I'm not saying let go of the stick and be all willy-nilly, right? I'm saying choose to control what you can control. Choose to be efficient with your limited time and talent and treasure. Remind each other to loosen your grip. You all have spent 55 minutes with me. In case you wondered what I talked about, this is my cheat sheet. You are welcome to take a picture of this. Change is a headwind that I do indeed believe we can harness to the favor of ourselves and certainly the teams that are on. Choosing an unscripted life, realizing you're part of a larger team, showing gratitude, realizing that trust starts with you, your actions, your decisions, your behaviors, honoring that